All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the recording process. And those of you who are in attendance today, you can check out the recording of this video on our YouTube channel. Now, if you're interested in, which I'm sure you are, you wouldn't be here, right? In opportunities with Dallas ISD, you can go to the URL dallasisd.org/opportunities. On that particular page, you can find out opportunities for both goods and services as well as construction services. Now, we have 3 different ways that you can submit your proposal with the RFP process, and that you can submit it in person. You can come to our administrative building located at 9400 North Central Expressway in Dallas, Texas, or you could submit it by mail. Now, if you submit it by mail, it is your responsibility to ensure that it's delivered and it's delivered on time. Or you can submit it electronically. Again, I referred to our YouTube video earlier on the electronic bidding process. And for your convenience, I've already included in the chat several attachments. So if you guys check out the top of the chat box, you should see 3 helpful attachments. One of them being this particular presentation. So you guys don't have to worry about asking if you're going to get a copy of it, because I've already attached it to the chat. You're also going to receive an attachment on how to complete the electronic bidding process, as well as the suggested layout for the RFP. So you can download that information at your convenience, or towards the end of the webinar, I will give you the opportunity to download those particular attachments. So again, that is for your convenience and for your information. Now, one of the things as it relates to submitting a request for a proposal to do business with Dallas ISD is there are a lot of components to it. There are a lot of pages to it. And there's also a lot of myths to doing business with Dallas ISD. So now I want to take the opportunity to see what those myths are, okay? Now, one of them is once you become a registered Dallas ISD vendor, you can do business with the district. That is not true. Once you become a registered vendor with Dallas ISD, you will receive bid notifications based on the category codes that you select when you complete your registration. However, you will not be able to do business with the district as it relates to opportunities that fall within the RFP. Now, some of the schools do have some discretionary funds that they can utilize, like on some of the clubs and different things like that at the school, where they can utilize services from vendors without going through the RFP process. However, the majority of the opportunities available at Dallas ISD, you would have to respond to a request for a proposal or one of our other contracting opportunities in order to do business with Dallas ISD. The other myth about doing business with Dallas ISD is Dallas ISD accepts open solicitations. We do not accept open solicitations with Dallas ISD, which means that you would have to respond to one of the opportunities that's posted on our website and go through the procurement process in order to be able to do business with the district. Now, there are obviously some exceptions to that particular rule. So for example, like for DJs, they wouldn't necessarily have to go through the RFP process because of the type of services that they provide. And also another myth is you must be a big company in order to do business with Dallas ISD. We love small businesses, and we encourage all of the small businesses, especially within our local communities, to respond to opportunities available at Dallas ISD. We definitely want to encourage you to do that. And we want to make sure that you know that all businesses are welcome to do business with Dallas ISD. The other myth is, as a minority or woman-owned business, you're required to be certified in order to do business with Dallas ISD. Now, as being a member of the Minority Women Business Enterprise Department, the reason why I want to emphasize this particular point is because for many small minority-owned and women-owned companies, they don't respond to opportunities with Dallas ISD because they believe that they are required to become certified before they could do business with the district. Although we encourage you to become certified because it would benefit your business, as well as Dallas ISD, but it's not a requirement in order to do business. And I emphasize that because I do not want you guys to miss out on an opportunity that's available to you because you're not certified. You can still work on your certification. And also, with that being said, if you're in the process of working on completing your certification, that does not classify you as being certified. You actually have to go through the process and receive your certification before you're deemed as being a certified MWBE. So I'm going to pause for just a minute and see if there are any questions on the floor for me for the information that I've said thus far. I know I see some people saying that they don't see the attachments. I'll have to see if I can reattach them before the conclusion of the webinar. If we have time at the end, I will make sure that I do that, and you guys can see if you see them. Now, if you're on your phone, you probably won't be able to see them, but if you're on a laptop or desktop, you should be able to see that particular information. Now, let me see, okay, I'm glad that you mentioned this. So someone just asked about nonprofit organizations. Nonprofits do not qualify to become certified, okay? So you have to be a for-profit company with a 51% ownership of a woman or a minority in order for you to become certified. So I hope that answers your question. That question came in anonymously. And like I said, you guys can ask questions anonymously. You don't have to identify yourself. But if you want to identify yourself, it's completely up to you. But thank you so much for asking that question. And then the second part of that is, are there other ways to benefit? So certification is really kind of like an accessory to your business, but it doesn't necessarily make your business. So if you're doing quality work and you're providing some amazing services, whether you're a nonprofit or for-profit, that in itself is a benefit. And so we're going to talk later about the scoring criteria with Dallas ISD and how you can maximize your points. And that's pretty much how you would benefit. So I don't want you to think because nonprofits can't be certified that they won't receive benefits for their willingness to do business with Dallas ISD. Okay, thank you again. And no other questions for that. And you know what? When I get ready to move on to the next slide, what I would like for you guys to do is let me know in the chat what myths you've heard about doing business with Dallas ISD. Let us know, because we want to know, because we want to let you know whether or not it's true or not, okay? So with that being said, with the myths about doing business with Dallas ISD, we want to let you know things you should know before doing business with Dallas ISD. Now, this is, again, a lot of information, so I'm going to go through it because this is important information that you need to know even before we go through the RFP process. You must respond to a solicitation like an RFP in order to do business with Dallas ISD. I kind of spoke on that briefly a little bit ago, that you can't just say, hey, I have this amazing product, or no one else on the earth has this particular product or this particular service. I'm the only one who does this. You still would have to respond to an RFP or an CSP or whatever contract type that Dallas ISD currently offers. And your responses will be evaluated by an evaluation committee and the MWBE department. Dallas ISD operates on a point system of up to 100 points. And out of the 100 points, the MWBE portion of the solicitation is worth up to 20 points. And Dallas ISD contract terms are 3 to 5 years. The reason why this is extremely important, what that means is if an opportunity comes out, so say for instance, an opportunity comes out for printing services, and that opportunity is out, and businesses respond to it, and the evaluation committee has done their due diligence by evaluating them. They've received their points, and businesses have been deemed awarded. There can be no other businesses that can respond to or receive work for that particular RFP. So if that printing service RFP was out and you missed it, unfortunately, it'll be 3 to 5 years before that opportunity rolls around again. Now, that's not to say that there may not be another opportunity that Dallas ISD offers that you may have the expertise in order to respond to it. But if you miss it for that particular one, it'll be 3 to 5 years, which means if you miss it twice, that's almost 10 years. And I know that I've had conversations with a lot of business owners who feel like, oh, Dallas ISD just doesn't want to do business with me. The thing about it, it's about timing, okay? Because if you go on our website right now, you'll see a list of opportunities that are available. And it may or may not fall up under what you can do or the services that you can provide. So you may have to wait until that rotation time comes around. So I recommend that you find out the current contracts that are out there for the services and or products that you provide to see when the current contract expires. So say, for instance, you provide promotional items, right? And you look and you see that promotional items RFP doesn't expire to it. I'm just throwing something out there. I haven't looked at it specifically, but say for instance, it doesn't expire until 2027, then you would have to wait until 2027 before that opportunity becomes available again. And it generally becomes available like 6 months prior to the expiration of the current contract, okay? So I'm going to pause there because I noticed a couple of things popping up with questions. So let me take a look at the questions before I move on. Okay, we have a vendor question on here, and I'll answer that question later. Most of the contracts here at Dallas ISD has a term of 3 to 5 years. Someone asked, does in-school programming occur in the same 3 to 5 year cycle? Yes, most of our contracts, if it's a contract, it is the cycle of 3 to 5 years. And I also want to let you guys know, I'm open to all of your questions, but those that are specifically related to RFPs are the ones that I'm going to answer first. All the other questions I'll answer towards the end of the webinar. Okay, so are there any additional questions about the contract terms with Dallas ISD? Okay, we're going to move forward. So Dallas ISD pays net 30. I probably should have said net 30 instead of 30 net. Net 30. So after you complete the product, or the services or provide the products, it'll be 30 days after you submit all your required documentation or after that you'll be paid. So 30 net or net 30. And then you and your team will have to undergo a background check at your expense. And so I want to make sure that I emphasize that it is your financial responsibility to get you and your team the background checks. Now, with the background checks, that's something that I'm not going to go into too deep here because, of course, we're trying to focus on the RFP and doing business with Dallas ISD. But the district will let you know exactly where you would have to go to get the background checks and different things like that. So it's not like if you have a background check from something else, you can use that. You have to follow the protocol as it relates to the background checks with Dallas ISD. And then also, if your response is late, it will not be accepted. Procurement Services is pretty strict about this. they're pretty strict about if it's late, they will not accept it. And the other thing that's so important is you cannot ask questions about an opportunity when it is active, unless you comply with the Q&A requirements and deadline date of the solicitation. So you cannot ask questions to the MWBE department nor procurement services about an active RFP. You have to submit your questions in writing that based on the requirements of the solicitation, and we'll kind of go over that and look at that as well today. The other thing is you can request a debrief if you do not win a contract. So if you submit your solicitation, your bid, and you do not win, you can try to find out why. In fact, that's one of the things that helps a lot of business owners, get better with submitting RFPs. You find out the things that you did wrong and find out, what information you missed out on or what you skipped, all of these things. The other thing is Dallas ISD does not award contracts to a single vendor. And I have a little asterisk next to that particular one because for the most part, so like in our construction services area, yes, it's pretty much, one prime contractor that wins the award. But on the goods and services side, we award the contract to multiple vendors. So you wouldn't necessarily be the only vendor that can provide services under that particular RFP. The other thing is when you're submitting your RFP, you should submit the addendums with your response. Sometimes this gets lost in some of the information, and some of the vendors don't include the addendum in their response. Most of the RFPs will provide information and tell you that you have to include the addendum in your response. The other thing is after you're awarded, you will have to solicit your business to the district. It's not an automated thing that once you become an awarded vendor with the district that, you just sit back and wait for the phone to ring. You have to kind of be proactive and let people know, hey, I've been awarded a contract with the district in order for you to get business. And the MWBE department is here to assist you as well after you've made the initial contact and you're running into some issues or communication problems. We're here to assist you as you navigate through that particular process. I'm going to pause right now before I go on to the next slide of things you should know before doing business with Dallas ISD and see what questions we have available. And I want to thank you guys so much for asking your questions in the Q&A box because it allows me to streamline the process and get to your questions a lot quicker instead of looking through the chat as well. Okay, I'm just scanning through some of the questions. Okay, Monica, as it relates to the background check, the district has a vendor where all background checks are conducted, and they will provide that information upon for the vendors. And this other question is there ever an interview process that occurs during the RFP process before the final solicitation is chosen? Just curious about the process. I'm not sure if we do necessarily interview processes, but I know that sometimes there's some negotiation meetings that take place to find out if some things can be changed before a decision is made. But I'm not necessarily sure, and I know Kimva is on the line, so I'm not sure if Kimva, if you want to include that information in the chat, or if you want to unmute your mic and answer that particular question as it relates to the interview process that occurs during the RFP process.
Hello, this is Kimba. No, there's generally not an interview process that takes place before the RFP is awarded. I probably would need more specifics on that question, but we do not interview the vendors, once you submit your proposals, there's no interview. Now, there may be demonstrations that take place, but it depends on, what type of services you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimba.
Welcome.
Mhm. And so, like I was thinking, no interview process, but sometime negotiation meetings for sure. Monica, there's not necessarily a preferred way to solicit because all contracts are different. So it just depends on the type of contract that you have as it relates to how you would get the word out about your business. And I hope that answers your question. So we have a couple questions about soliciting your business. So it just basically means marketing to internal departments or schools within the district based off of your contract, right? So if your contract is district wide, then yes, you could be able to provide information to some of the schools or the departments about your products or services. I would recommend just start to build relationships. Like if you know you want to do business with Dallas ISD, to start building those relationships within Dallas ISD to make sure that you let people know about the types of services or products that you offer for your business. And again, towards the end, if you guys still have questions about that, we can go into that in a little bit more detail. Okay, thank you so much. So somebody said, okay, and then so someone wanted to know what does 30 or net 30 means. That is the payment cycle for Dallas ISD. And so Kimba, I don't know if you can kind of chime back in on that to kind of help explain that a little bit better as it relates to the process, because once you provide the service or the product to Dallas ISD has 30 days to pay you based off of all your submission and receiving the product or service. So we don't prepay for products or services. It's pretty much after everything is delivered and received, then it's 30 days after that you would get paid from Dallas ISD. And I hope that better explains that or help you understand that particular thing. Okay. And some of the other questions that I see you guys have on here is regarding vendor registration. And so I will answer those towards the end of this particular webinar, because I'm looking at this other question. So is there a time limit when requesting a debrief on non-awards? I don't want to answer that in a definitive because it depends on how long it's been. But I would say if it's been within the last year, for sure. But if it's an older one, it would just depend on how old. So Nancy, if you want to kind of, give me a little bit more information as to how old it is, because we would have to, depending on what kind of questions you have, we would have to pull that information. But we do keep records for a certain number of years, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I would say probably within a year, that would make it better for the district to be able to assist you with that. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next part of things you should know before doing business with Dallas ISD. And so the other thing is the MWBE forms are part of every solicitation. So some people think that the forms are just for those who are either a minority or a woman or a certified minority or woman, but it's for everyone. It's included in every single solicitation that the district puts out, no matter what the contract type is. So it's for everyone. And then the other thing is, the things you need to know is if you've been previously awarded a contract, you will not be automatically awarded the new contract. You will have to resubmit your response for the new RFP. So say, for instance, the contract cycle for promotional items has run through its cycle. It expires. They put out a new RFP for promotional items. You will have to respond to that new RFP. It doesn't just continuously roll over. The only thing that continuously rolls over is if that particular current contract that you're under has that extension, that 3 to 5 year extension. But if a new RFP comes out with a new RFP number, you will have to reapply for that each time it comes out. And sometimes vendor gets caught up in that because they think because they're an awarded vendor that even after the 5 years, it's just going to continuously just continue to roll over. And that's not true. You have to reapply. And if you are awarded a contract with a district, that does not guarantee business with the districts, because most contracts are on an as-needed basis, which is why I said that you would need to kind of solicit your business or promote your business or market your business, let people know about your business, let us know about your business, let us know that you're an awarded vendor and you're, wanting to do business with the district. The reason why this is so important, because a lot of the RFPs have many businesses that's been awarded that same contract. And if it's on an as-needed basis, then your services will only be needed when it's needed. And so you would have to make sure you build those relationships within Dallas ISD, at the schools, on a departmental level, to ensure that people are aware of the products and services that you offer. Okay, that's very important. And then the amount on the board document award is cumulative amount that is divided between awarded vendors. And the reason why this is so important is because if you see that the contract is $5 million, the $5 million is just not for one vendor. That $5 million is based off of that award or that contract, not based off of a vendor. So once, say for instance, if I'm a vendor under that contract and I do $3 million with the district, they have $2 million out of that $5 million contract under that RFP to do business. So that means whoever else gets business with the district, there's $2 million left in that pot for that particular RFP. And I hope I didn't confuse anybody, but definitely let me know if you have any questions on that one. So before we go on to the next slide, I just want to check in to see if we have any questions. And the reason why I'm kind of going through and asking questions kind of as we go along, because we have so much information to cover over the next, however much time we have left. And I just want to make sure that you guys get your questions answered and that you are clear and you understand what we're going through or what the process is here. So the other question is, does Dallas ISD host events where vendors can meet departments within Dallas ISD? Yes, we do. In fact, we're planning one for September of this year. So just stay tuned to the MWBE webpage to see information on that forthcoming. So definitely make sure that you have that information, okay? And then I see some stuff in the chat. See, you guys were doing really good with the Q&A. Now you're jumping over to the chat now. So we're going to, let's see. Let's get some of these questions answered. Absolutely. So the question is, if we are not awarded an RFP, is it possible to have the opportunity to learn why? Yes, that's called the debrief process. So you would just request a debrief. You can go through our department to do that, and we'll collaborate with procurement services to get that set up for you. As it relates to meeting with the heads of Dallas ISD, it's best to find out who is the point of contact for that particular contract and then try to meet with that particular person. On the board document, there is contact information on the board document, but it's primarily going to have the head of that particular department, but it's best to find out who is responsible for that particular contract in that particular department and then reach out to that person. Okay, Monica, if you're on the construction side, then once you respond to a CSP, and by the way, Monica, we have an amazing event for construction business owners actually next Friday on June 23rd called Building Big, a construction mixer that I would definitely, if you are not already registered, that I recommend that you register for. But for those of you who are on the call who are a part of construction business, please register for our event next Friday. Now, the CSP process is a little bit different. If you're interested in learning more about the CSP process, I will actually be conducting a in-person workshop on Friday at that particular event that I was just talking about to go over the CSP process, kind of like what I'm doing now, but for construction side. So you don't necessarily have to solicit your business once you're awarded a construction project, because you're going to be doing either the renovations or building a new school. So usually on the construction side, one contractor wins the bid. And of course, they have their subcontractors. So Monica, I hope that answered your question. Okay, it looks like that's it for the questions. Let's see if we have some other ones here, because it looks like we don't necessarily, one of the questions is, can they obtain email addresses to the schools, sponsors to provide marketing materials? We don't necessarily provide email addresses to the campuses. Now, our website, like the general Dallas ISD website, is a great place to go to find out all the different departments, even the schools. So you could capture that information that way. But as far as the Dallas ISD MWBE department, we don't necessarily have that information on hand to provide for all of the schools with email addresses and different things like that. But you can go to dallasisd.org to pull some of that information. This question is about the lowest bid and how can we gauge budgets and different things like that. So when it comes to budgets and different things like that, that really falls up under the business, because you have to be able to just submit your pricing and determine like your break-even analysis portion. So that's not something that Dallas ISD would necessarily do or deal with. So that would be on the business owners to be able to provide that information, to provide your best price to Dallas ISD. Although Dallas ISD, that particular process is not just based off of pricing. Now, pricing is important because we want the best available price, but it's not the core. I've seen some businesses win and they did not have the lowest price, but they had other things. So just keep that in mind, because what's so important with that is, although we would love for you to do business with us, we don't want your business to go under because you've underbid. We definitely don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure that you take the proper steps. And there are resources out there, scores available. And I think I saw Linda Gray on here with SCORE. She's a great resource and she can help you with that as well. So you have SCORE that can help you with that. You have entities like the SBDC that can help you with that, that provide those types of services that can help business owners gauge and get those types of, their business plan together, your pricing structure and different things like that. But that's something that the district expects for the business owners to have in place when they are preparing their proposal. Okay, let's see what else we got going on here with these questions. All right, I think that's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to some of the tips I have for you for success with submitting your proposal. Create your own checklist. I can't emphasize how important and how efficient this can help you when you create your own checklist based off of that particular RFP. Because a lot of times if you forget something or you miss important information that's required, your proposal won't even be evaluated. So you definitely want to make sure you do that. Have someone double check your signatures. This is like an oldie but goodie for me. I used to make this recommendations years ago when I was doing a lot of in-person workshops. I would recommend that you count the number of signatures that you need for that particular proposal and have someone else go through it to see if they have the same number of signatures that you have, to make sure that you don't miss signatures, because it's simple things like that that can, make or break or make a determination on whether or not your proposal will even be evaluated. So you definitely want to make sure you double check your signatures. And then you definitely want to submit it on time. I cannot emphasize this one enough, because if you're a minute late, they won't accept it. And I'm not even joking on that one. So, and don't wait until the day of to try to submit electronically. We just recently had how to submit your bid electronically webinar, where we provided essential information on submitting your bid electronically. Now, ours is not like a lot of the other school districts, so you have to kind of take your time with it. So do not wait until the day of to submit your bid unless you start that morning. But if you start at 1 o'clock, that might not be good for you, because I'm telling you, once 2 o'clock hits, that's it. You cannot, and it doesn't matter what you could, have a family emergency, you got a flat tire, whatever the case may be, it does not matter. You have to submit it on time and thoroughly read through the solicitation. When I first started doing RFP webinars, the RFP looked completely different than it does now. And so it's kind of like you have to make sure that you read through the RFP, that you make sure you write down your questions, and hopefully you will see the RFP before the Q&A deadline is approached, and then you can get your questions answered. And then just provide the requested information, right? So don't spend a lot of time trying to make it look cute. You want to make sure that you answer the questions, that you follow the instructions, that you provide all of the information that is required. I have known vendors to not respond to any of the questions within the RFP. They just submitted information about their company because they thought that was how you responded to an RFP. That's not how you respond to an RFP. You need to read thoroughly through the information. You need to submit the information that is being requested of you. Do not submit a bunch of other information, because you want to make sure you preserve your time in the right spots. Okay. And then keep everything organized. If you think about it from a standpoint of, these are people going through your proposals, your responses. If they have to dig through a bunch of different paperwork to find something that's supposed to be right behind something else, yours is probably going to be set aside to go through later. You want to make it as easy and as convenient as possible for those who are going to be evaluating your stuff. So think of it from that standpoint. How can I make this easier for the person who's going to be reading through, not only reading through it, but evaluating it? And then you want to attend the pre-bid meeting. We encourage all of our vendors to attend the pre-bid meeting. That's so important. You want to attend the pre-bid meeting because it will give you the opportunity, first of all, to see who else is interested in bidding on that project. And it gives you the opportunity to ask questions that you're curious about or that you need to know, to give you the opportunity to respond appropriately. And then if you are a minority-owned or woman-owned company, get certified. Yes, it's not required to do business with Dallas ISD, but it will help you, and then it will help us as well, because we want to make sure that we are doing our part within following our board policy to help minorities and women-owned businesses do business with Dallas ISD. And the only way that we can ensure that is if you're verified that you are, in fact, a minority-owned or woman-owned business, that your business is owned and operated and ran by a minority-owned or woman-owned business, owning 51% of that particular business. And then you want to make sure you have a financial cushion. Now, we spoke about the net 30. And so you want to make sure that you have enough money in your business to be able to do business on a contractual basis with any entity, not just Dallas ISD, but especially Dallas ISD, because that's what you're here for today, is to do business with Dallas ISD. So you want to make sure that you have a financial cushion, because this will give you the opportunity to be able to stay afloat while you're waiting on that payment to come through from Dallas ISD, whether that's paying your employees, your payroll, whether that's, just making sure you have the supplies and different things that you need in order to be able to respond to requests that are made from Dallas ISD. And then you want to type your responses or print clearly. This is so important because these minor details can be instrumental or very crucial to you not receiving some great information. You could get an email saying, hey, congratulations, you've been awarded this contract, but they can't read your email. And so therefore you don't have that information readily available. You can't even verify that you're a contracted and awarded vendor, because no one was able to contact you because they couldn't read your information. There are a lot of softwares that are out there that you can convert these PDFs to a typable format, so you can submit your information very clearly, where it's very organized, and it looks very nice, it's legible. Nobody's going to be going, is that a C or an E or an A? We're not going to have to worry about that if you provide that type information. And then do some research. All of the information is going to be within the RFP. So you want to make sure you do some research. You want to make sure you attend informative webinars like today. You want to make sure that you keep abreast of all the changes and the new things that's going on, and understanding the processes, right? Whether it's the MWBE forms, their procurement process, because what a lot of people don't realize is these are all different departments within Dallas ISD. The department that I'm with is the Minority Women Business Enterprise Department. The department that Kimba Hill is with is Procurement Services. The department that you guys are inquiring about for your vendor registration is our iSupplier department. So these are all three different departments that you have to get this information from. And you need to understand these different processes from these different departments, because it kind of all ties in together. And if you don't understand that, and if you don't understand that these are all different departments, you're going to be asking questions from one department when it should, in fact, go to a different department. Now, I have to say, we do a great job as Dallas ISD within internal collaborations, where we can try to communicate as effectively as possible to make sure that, okay, if you're asking me a question about vendor registration, like some of you have done, I'll make sure that you either get the appropriate information from our vendor registration department, or I'll provide you with that information. But it's good for you to understand that we don't deal with vendor registrations, but we're here to help you. But I want you guys to understand that it's three different departments. And then you got to be proactive. You got to be proactive, because sometimes it doesn't happen within the first go around. Sometimes you have to hone in your skills and make sure that you complete the information and that you have all the information that you need. And sometimes that takes a couple rounds. Now, with that being said, now that I've identified that you have that 3 to 5 year window, you could still practice and submit responses to other school districts, other entities, but also being proactive. If you know, hey, if that's one of your goals, I definitely want to do business with Dallas ISD, you got to be proactive. And that can fall up under so many different things. And I just don't have enough time to go through each and every detail of it. But if you want to know, just send me an email and I will set up a meeting with you, and we can talk a little bit more about that. And I've already talked about understanding the processes, and also ask questions, right? Because sometimes, if you feel like, this is unclear to me, I really don't know it, because some of you, I understand, like, this is a new process for you. You've never submitted a response to a proposal before, and you don't know all the ins and outs for it. If you don't ask the questions, then you can't expect for you to get it right. So it's okay for you to ask questions. It's okay. Just go ahead and ask the question and then get the answer. And sometimes, you know, you may have to go through a couple people to get the answer or the right answer from the right department or the right person. That's part of being proactive, right? So you just gotta keep at it until you get the information. The key to responding to a request for a proposal is you gotta focus on the scope of work. So for example, if I asked you guys, what's your favorite color, right? So if I just asked you, what's your favorite color? And you guys just started chiming in the chat, my favorite color is this, my favorite color is that. I asked you a question, right? What's your favorite color? And you told me the answer. That's what responding to these RFPs is like. You're responding to the questions that's being asked of you as it relates to the products and services that your company provides, which there's an expectation from the district that you're an expert on your company, you're an expert on the services that you provide, you're an expert on the products that you provide. So the scope of work pretty much outlines what the district is asking for, and your job is to respond to those questions. I know I simplified it, you know, with the whole color thing, but it's kind of the same thing. You're basically responding to some questions that you're being asked about your business and how your business could help solve the issue that the district has. I want you guys to see it that way, okay? The RFPs is to respond to an issue that the district has. It is your job to be the solution, the problem solver of that particular issue. And your response to that RFP is explaining to the district how your company can resolve that issue. Okay, if you guys don't remember anything from this particular webinar, remember that responding to requests for proposals is responding to an issue. So your response should be the solution to that particular issue. Okay, now I'm going to turn my camera off and then we're going to talk a little bit about the layout and then we're going to go deep into these RFPs, okay? So the suggested layout is you want to have your table of contents. You want to have your cover letter. You want to have a company overview. You want to have your responses to the RFP, any additional documentation, and last but definitely not least, your MWBE forms. Now, I just want to check to see if we have any questions before we move on, because after this particular slide, we're going to start digging into these RFPs. So someone asked, are bids submitted electronically or hard copy? You could submit your bids either way, but not both. So if you decide you want to submit them electronically, you can submit them electronically. If you want to submit them hard copy, you can either hand deliver them, bring them with you, or you could submit them by mail. Again, if you submit them by mail, it's your responsibility to make sure that it gets here by the date and deadline time frame. I'm just reading some questions, so bear with me for a second. Okay, this question is there a help desk or FAQ place to ask technical questions regarding filling out the forms? I don't know. I don't think we have FAQ section specifically for filling out the forms. We do have an FAQ section on the procurement website as well as the MWBE website, but it's not specifically for the forms. There are several webinars that we've conducted, especially on the MWBE forms, but as it relates to the RFP FAQ, we don't have one specifically for the request for proposal on the procurement website.
Stephanie, can I just interject real quick?
Absolutely.
As Stephanie stated, there is no specific frequently FAQs for the RFP, but there are step-by-step instructions on the website to walk you through doing the RFP process.
Okay, Kimba, is that the RFP process for submitting electronically or the RFP process for responding to a RFP?
For submitting electronically through
Right.
sourcing.
Yeah, so we do have that, but this particular question was regarding filling out the forms
Okay.
from the RFP.
No, there's none, but if you have questions, then you would contact the buyer that is listed on the RFP by email.
Okay, Sophia, I saw you had your hand raised. We don't necessarily, can you submit your question in writing? Or is it detailed to the point that you feel like you need to ask it verbally? Please let me know before we move on. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure we don't have any additional questions that I need to answer before we move on. Okay, Sam, I'm not really sure of the question specifically. So it says, is there ever an exception to the minimum RFP requirements as it pertains to new foreign businesses less than 3 years, or considerations for such businesses who may not meet the requirements 100%? I guess, Sam, the answer to that particular question would just be dependent on what the actual RFP is and what the requirements are within the RFP. All RFPs are different, so it will really just depend on the RFP and what services or products you provide. Okay, so Sophia wants to know what other MWBE forms. I'm glad you asked, because we're about to get through all of that now. So hold on, we're about to get there. So the next portion of the webinar is we're going to actually go through a couple of RFPs. We're going to go through some detailed information for the RFPs, and you guys will have the opportunity to ask those particular questions as it relates to the RFP, okay? So let's talk about some RFPs, and that's kind of what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the RFPs, and also I'm going to put in the chat that we do have a page specific to where you can locate the Dallas ISD's MWBE forms, and I'm putting that information in the chat now. Thank you so much, Sophia. Okay, so now we're going to look at some RFPs. Yay, right? So let's see here. We're going to go to the Dallas ISD Procurement Services page, where we are going to look at a current opportunity. We're not going to ask or answer any questions, but I just want to kind of go through the way that the RFPs currently look to see if you have, so I can identify some things. And then we're going to go through an old RFP in great detail, and then I'm going to share with you actual responses, and so you can get a feel for what I was talking about earlier. Now, this is, let me go back one more. So this is the page where you would go find our current opportunities, okay? So these are the current opportunities that's available here at Dallas ISD. As you can see, the RFP stands for Request for Proposal. The 2 letters before the numbers is the buyer's initials. And then you have the RFP number, you have the title of the RFP. This sourcing number right here is specific to if you're responding electronically. This is how you would look up the RFP in the electronic portal. The closing date of the RFP is June 15, 2023 at 2 p.m., which means that if you submit it at 2:01, it will not be accepted. And again, this is another key point, that if you don't remember anything when you leave this webinar, you don't forget that if you submit it 2:01, it will not be accepted. Now, you click on the opportunity that you're interested in, and you'll see here, you'll see the bid package. And that is where you'll actually find the actual RFP. So the actual RFP will be found here. And then I spoke earlier about addendums. So essentially, this part of the webinar, I'm kind of going to be going back to some of the information that I spoke about earlier, but you're going to see it in real time. Okay. So I spoke about the bid package, which is where you would find the actual solicitation. So if I click on that, you'll see a series of documents in a PDF format. And as you can see here, if you see up at the top, this particular RFP package is 53 pages. And the reason why I want to emphasize that is because sometimes these things can be 100 pages. You know, we try to minimize the pages as much as possible, but they're not short. I guess that's the long and the short of it. They're not short documents. And it's going to be important for you to, you know, segment it in a way that helps you understand. And here you will see this is like the first sheet of the RFP. And I'm kind of going to go through some key things on this particular RFP. This is the buyer's name here, and this is the buyer's email. Now with that, this 1.1 general information here, this is so important. This is where all the important dates are located, the important deadline dates and all of that. I mentioned earlier, we talked a little bit about your pre-proposal meeting, your question deadline date, and when the solicitation is due. I also want to emphasize the terminology. So when they say solicitation, pre-proposal meetings, so solicitation, RFP, bid, those are terms that's kind of interchangeable that people kind of say, but it's all referring to the same thing. So your response to this particular RFP, which is what it means when it says solicitation is due, is June 15, which is tomorrow. Okay. And so this particular one is due tomorrow. The other thing I want to highlight is the question deadline date is or was May 31st. So if you didn't have your questions in by May 31st, your questions will not be answered. The other thing I want to highlight about your questions and answer portion, you're required to submit your questions as is outlined within the RFP. However, you will not receive individual responses. All of the responses will be submitted within the addendum of that particular RFP. So do not expect an email back saying, hey, this is the answer to your question. They do this to make the playing field, you know, even throughout. So that means that even though you were the brilliant person that asked that particular question, they want to make sure that everybody is aware of all the questions that were asked and everybody has the answers. So no one is left out. No one has information that someone else doesn't have because they didn't ask the question. But it could be, or it can't be, depending on who the vendor is, helpful to them as they navigate through responding to that. So again, that general information section is going to be crucial because that's going to provide you with the deadline dates that you're going to need. One of the other things that I just want to highlight on this, because again, this is an active RFP, so we're not going to be going through this particular RFP. But some of the things that I wanted to highlight for this particular one is each of the RFPs has the evaluation process right within the paperwork, right within it. You know, so there's nothing hidden. You just have to make sure that you read through it. And again, this is part of the research. This is part of understanding how it's laid out. This is part of understanding what that's provided for you. So here is the final evaluation statement, the points. Remember, I was telling you that Dallas ISD operates on a point of scales of 100. So the total points is 100 here. So I'm just going to put that here. Now, if you look at the various information, you see there's 40 points here, right? So the purchase price is 40 points. The quality of the vendor's goods and services is 20 points. So that's 60 points already. Okay, so that's 60 points right off the top. Your purchase price and the quality of the vendor's goods and services. And then also the extent to which the goods and services meet the district's needs. Okay. So we're at 80 points already. We're at 80 points. And I'm pretty sure you guys don't, I did say it earlier that 20 points is MWBE. So you got your 80 points for your purchase price, your quality of vendors, goods and services, the extent in which the goods and services meet the district's needs, and then MWBE is 20 points. So the importance of understanding that is because I tell vendors all the time, I want you to see every single document within this package as points. Just see it as points. Just see it as being a value of something. Even if you don't understand what that particular page, how many points that particular page will give you, or how many points your response will give you. See everything that you do, everything that you submit has a point value. Now, the MWBE portion, we have very specific point allocations, and we'll kind of go over that because the MWBE forms also carries a scoring criteria as well. Now, procurement service has done a great job by highlighting the point allocation here so that there's no secret. Everything is out there. You know where the 100 points is going to, up to 100 points. So the reason why I'm emphasizing up to 100 points, because just because it says 40 points, that doesn't mean you're going to get 40 points. Just because it says 20 points, that doesn't mean you're going to get 20 points, and so on and so forth. Just because it says 5 points, that doesn't mean you're going to get 5 points. But the thing that I'm emphasizing to you guys today is that you understand that 3 of these things is up to 80 points. And then MWBE is 20 points. So I want you to keep those things into perspective as you navigate through responding to these RFPs. Now, I also informed you that the MWBE forms are a part of each solicitation within Dallas ISD. As you can see, this is an active RFP on the website right now, and there's the MWBE forms. Now, we do have the fillable MWBE forms on the MWBE website. And if you look right here, it says visit our website for the fillable version of these forms. And I know some of you are probably like, well, why isn't the whole thing fillable? Remember, I talked about those different departments, and then we have, different segments of that. But again, there are many softwares out there that's available that will give you, that you can convert this entire package into a fillable document. The other thing that I want to highlight on the MWBE packet, because you want to make sure that you complete this in its entirety. A lot of people think that, well, if I don't have subcontractors, why do I have to complete the MWBE forms? If I don't have a certification, why do I have to complete the MWBE forms? Because the MWBE forms is worth up to 20 points, depending on what information you have put on there. Or it could be, depending on the information, it could be 0 points. It just depends on what you fill out, what information you have to offer. Now, here is the MWBE scoring criteria, okay? And so these are the different numbers that go up to 20 points. I'm not going to go into great detail about these particular points, but if you guys have questions about it, and if we get done in enough time, I can always go back and kind of help you understand the point allocations for as it's identified. Now, the thing about the point allocations, that's not going to change. for here. Now, I'm saying that now, but there may be some changes with MWBE that may be forthcoming. But as of today, you'll see that the 20 points are here. This is how you get to the 20 points. And one of the other key things that I want to identify and talk about is the fact that these points, you may not be able to get all 20 points. You may not be able to get all 100 points. I have yet to see it in my career. But if I'm going to fall short over here, okay, I know because I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have that. Try to pick up the points somewhere else. If you could pick them up in MWBE, if you could pick them up over here, because at the end of the day, they're going to all be added up. Okay, your points are all going to be added up. And depending on what that looks like would determine what your points are, because it's competitive. Okay, you're going to be competing with another vendor that's responding to the same thing, that may be providing different information that's going to change their points. If you have a high price point, you're going to have to pick the points up somewhere else. Okay, you're going to have to pick those points up somewhere else. Now, we talked about that particular RFP that is on the website currently. And we've already identified that we can't talk about that particular one in great detail. So now I'm going to talk about an ORFP in detail so that you guys can see kind of what I've been talking about as it relates to the information that you're being asked and where your focal point should be. Now, we've talked about the deadline dates, okay? So this one was last year. We've talked about how to identify the deadline dates. We've talked about how when you submit a question, it must be in writing and you have to abide by what's in the RFP. So if we slide down here, it says here that questions concerning the solicitation document should be addressed in writing to the buyer's email. Questions must be submitted by the deadline date to allow sufficient time for responses prior to receipt opening date time. Responses to questions other than administrative questions will be provided to all potential offers by means of an addendum to this solicitation. So they're letting you know. And I'm impressed with procurement services because they've made a lot of changes and updates to make it easier for you guys to respond, easier for you guys to know where the information is. So what I'm going to do now is go back over to the other RFP because I want to show you guys where the addendum is. So you should see the RFP that we were just talking about, the purchase of buses for school transportation. Now here, this particular RFP has one addendum. So if we click on that addendum, you'll see that this particular addendum is how the questions and answers will be administered. Now, say for instance, you don't know to look for that addendum, you're gonna miss this. You're gonna miss this important information. So you see the different information. The questions are asked in black and the answers are in red. So it wasn't that many questions that were asked, but they were all answered and they were all posted in the addendum. So that's what, when you see addendum, that's what that means. You need to go back to the website. So it's going to be a bunch of back and forth for you as well. So you're going to have to go back to the website and you're going to have to look up that addendum to make sure that you have it and that you submit it with your response. Let's go back to the one that we were looking at. So this particular one, is for network device maintenance. And we've already talked about the Q&A, the deadline. And can anyone remember which area of the RFP I said was the most important? If you can remember it, put that in the chat box, please. if you can remember the section of the RFP that I said was the most important, can you put that response in the chat box, please? Thank you guys so much. And Tracy, you are definitely paying attention. The scope of work is the most important part of an RFP. So thank you so much, Tracy, for providing that answer. And you guys are right, Carol and Jacqueline, you guys are right as well. The dates are extremely important as well, because if you don't get it in by the deadline date, it's not going to matter if you respond appropriately. But Tracy is most definitely right with the scope of work. So we're going to utilize this is the actual RFP that was out. I didn't make any adjustments. I didn't make any changes. This is what was out. The scope of work. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through the scope of work. We have a little under 30 minutes to go. So we're gonna really dig through this, and we're gonna identify some of the things that they're requesting. So I want to highlight that under this scope of work, we have about 12 questions specifically that they're asking. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up. And so right in the beginning of this particular RFP, they're saying, hey, we're accepting proposal for network device maintenance. All vendors are encouraged to participate, even if vendors are sole source providers of a product. So they're explaining to potential responders that we have 34,000 routers, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read each thing word for word. And Dallas ISD utilizes network equipment manufacturers by companies such as, but not limited to, and then they go on to list the companies. To support the network, Dallas ISD is soliciting bids for hardware and software. Okay, so remember earlier when I talked about creating your checklist? So they've identified, and their problem is they need somebody to help them with the network. So they're saying that they're soliciting bids for hardware and software to support the most critical network devices. So if we're doing our checklist, what are we going to say that they're looking for? Respond in the chat. Let's see who's going to get this next one. So what is this scope of work asking for before we even go any further to the objectives? Who can tell me what this RFP is asking for? Exactly. You guys are great. So if we're doing our own checklist on this, that's going to be one of the things that we're going to focus on. And if we have a technology business, we already know, okay, this is what they're asking for. And if we provide that particular service, we're going to keep reading to see if we have everything that they're going to need. Okay. So it's saying that the result of this request for proposal will be 3-year contract with 2 1-year optional renewals. Remember, I said 3 to 5 years. So there's your 3 to 5 years right there. And let me highlight this just in case you guys don't see where I'm talking about. Right here, where it says it's basically the second line where it talks about the request, the contract terms. 3 years with 2 1-year renewals, which is going to be your 3 to 5 years. So let's dig a little bit further, okay? Because we're working on our checklist on this, okay? And so the objectives to be satisfied through this RFP are as follows. Okay, now we're getting ready to get into the details, right? So a lot of times you just have to kind of go through each one. To obtain vendors to provide network device maintenance contracts for specified devices to Dallas ISD. So they're already saying, like, we're telling you the devices. This is what you're going to be providing, network device maintenance. To ensure Dallas ISD obtains the best pricing, who can remember the number of points for pricing? Respond in the chat if you can remember the point allocation for pricing. All right, look at that. You guys are on it. Boy, I have, Dallas ISD webinars, we have some of the best attendees. You guys are on it. You guys are paying attention. So we already know that 40 of the 100 points is for pricing. So they're telling you right off the top, we want the best pricing, the contract terms and conditions, which will enhance the district's competitive position throughout the contract term. So they're already telling you right up the top to explore and support leading edge technologies, which are more efficient and cost effective for Dallas ISD, right? Because the core of Dallas ISD is to support students, to support and educate students. That's the core of Dallas ISD beyond anything else. So keep that in mind. So they're telling you, hey, we want to be the leading edge, right? So to obtain a maintenance solution that follows best practices while still providing the most cost-effective solution for the district. You're seeing cost-effective several times. They've already identified the pricing. So they're already telling you right off the top. Sometimes you got to read into some of these things, right? Because they're not going to be written specific and so clear. So sometimes you got to read into it. And the district desires long-term sustainability with minimal staff required to support the systems. Okay, so they're already telling you. So that's, what does that say to you? Does that say automation? Does that say, what does that say to you? So you got to kind of look at this. And so project requirements. So they're getting ready to tell you what the requirements are. And it's up to you as a business owner to be able to say to yourself, can I provide all of this? Now, some of these RFPs will be kind of separated where you may be, so for example, like with tutoring services, you may only provide tutoring services for math or English or whatever. They'll have that segmented, but sometimes they want it all. They want a key, turnkey type style. So let's continue to read to see what we got here. The selected vendor is expected to provide a project manager. So I'm gonna stop right there. They're letting you know right now that the selected vendor is expected to provide a project manager. So we're gonna put that on our checklist that we need to have a project manager for this contract that will interface and become the district's main contact with the vendor for the duration of the project. Okay, and they're letting you know throughout the life of the project. And they're also saying the district reserves the right to request a change in the project managers based on performance. So they're already letting you know, hey, if the project manager that is assigned does not meet our expectations, we have a right to request a change. So you guys kind of have to deal with that. Now, before we move on, I want you guys to be thinking about if you were a technology company, and I know we have many different companies on here, but if you were a technology company, I want you to be thinking about how you will respond to this and what type of information you would provide in here. Because at the end of the day, remember the what's your favorite color question? That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a question and an answer type scenario, right? So we want to make sure that we answer every single question that the district is asking us. Okay, that's what we want to do. So now let's go on to that next level where it says service level agreement. They're telling us within this that we must agree to it. At the first line, all proposing vendors must provide and agree to a service level agreement as part of their proposal response. So they're telling you right off the top. Now, here's the thing that creates frustration. So say, for instance, you respond to this, but you don't do this particular part and you don't get awarded. Who's at fault? You or Dallas ISD? Something to ponder, because they're telling you exactly what they want and what they're looking for. So it's your job at this point to provide a response to what they're asking for. You can't assume that they know what you're responding to or what you're offering unless you explicitly identify that. Okay, so they're telling you, and they're even telling you that the service level agreement must outline the expectations for addressing escalation of, remediation of issues and problems. They're already telling you what it should include. So let's move on. And then the other thing I want to point out too is each one of these little sections has areas for you to provide your answers, okay? And so this is a fairly new format that Procurement Services has put out. So you definitely want to make sure you don't miss these little, you see here, I want to point this out. I'm going to highlight it here. No response required. So they'll let you know if no response is required. No response is required because they're basically giving you detailed information on what they're asking for. This is probably one of the more detailed RFPs that I've seen. Now here, so we go from where they're talking about the agreement and what you have, and then now they're talking about some other stuff, scope and specifications of the proposal. Dallas ISD requires 24/7, 365 support. So if you provide 23 times 6 times 362, do you qualify for this RFP? So these are some of the things that you have to take into consideration before you respond to an RFP. You have to make sure that your business can provide the services or products that the district is requiring. Remember, problem, solution. So they're basically telling you what you have to offer. Now it says note here. And I want to highlight that because if your company offers multiple options for maintenance and support plans, including pricing options, explain each option and submit each one as a separate bid reply. That's important. Right? So it's these little small details that you guys have to pay attention to in order to make sure that you're responding appropriately. Now, obviously, this particular RFP is going to be different than another one, but the point that I want to show you guys is that you have to kind of take your time with these things, and you have to create your checklist. So what are we going to add next to our checklist? Dallas ISD requires 24/7, 365 support. If we cannot provide that, we may want to push back from this particular opportunity instead of investing our time, submitting what we have, and then getting upset because we don't get selected. We don't want to do that because then it's just going to frustrate you, and you don't want to do that to yourself. Then they're saying here, the selected vendor will provide a single point of contact for all billing and coverage issues. Okay, they're telling you, so we're going to add that to our checklist. Then we want to talk about the selected vendor must be authorized and certified. One of the things that I love about the English language, it seems like the smallest words have the largest impact. The small word that I'm thinking about in this moment is and. Right here. So it's saying that the selected vendor must be authorized and certified. It didn't say authorized or certified, which is a huge difference, right? So if I'm saying I'm going to give you $50 and a gift certificate, what are you going to expect? You're going to expect $50 and a gift certificate. Now, if I say I'm going to give you $50 or a gift certificate, there's a huge difference there. So it's these types of key words and terms that you need to be very, very aware of as you're reading through these things, okay? So we already know they're wanting the vendor to be authorized and certified by each manufacturer and be able to provide support contracts for all network and equipment specified within this RFP, including, okay, so again, I'm rubbing my hands together because we're getting ready to find out what we need to provide. Cisco systems, okay? So I'm actually going to do this. Cisco systems. I'm putting this in the chat box. HPE, which is Hewlett Packard, Fortinet, and Aruba. And I just put that in the chat, okay? So that's what they're saying that we need to be authorized for and certified for, right? By each one of those. So let's see, that's 4 systems. Let's make sure I got them all. Remember, because we want to double check, because this is part of our checklist. So Cisco systems, check. HPE, check. Fortinet, check. Aruba, check. Please confirm you are authorized and certified by each manufacturer and will be able to provide support contracts for all network and equipment specified within this RFP. Now, there's another note there. Do we want to read that or do we want to skip over that? And I think sometimes when you're looking through these things and you're going through them very quickly, you may just skip it. But let's see what it says. The inability to provide a maintenance contract for any of the manufacturer's equipment listed in this RFP will be considered a disqualification from being awarded the contract. Again, they're letting us know, if you don't have this and you can't provide us what we're asking you for, guess what? You're disqualified, okay? And see, what'll happen is you'll have somebody that'll reply and they'll have Cisco systems, they'll have HPE, and they'll have Aruba, but not Fortinet. But they're telling you right here that if you don't have these things and you can't prove it, you're going to be disqualified. So here, as part of this is, they're telling you right here, circle, right? So if you don't pay attention to this and you don't circle any of these things that's within the RFP, it's going to present a problem because this is part of the response to the RFP. This is just not to be on there. They're actually wanting you to respond. They're telling you circle 1 from the responses value below. Yes, I can confirm my company is authorized and certified, because remember, and or are small words, but they're powerful. This one, no, I cannot confirm. And then it says the district shall consider a no response on the basis for non-award and or cancellation and or termination for any award. So they're telling you right now. So for the purpose of this, we're going to say yes. Why? Because we're just that kind of company, right? We have all of our ducks in a row. We have all of our information and we know what we have to submit, and we're working on our checklist, right? Because we already got our specific tools in place. Now, not only are they saying that you have to have these things, now they're getting even deeper. They're saying each respondent must attach a manufacturer's letter or other written evidence documentation of their certification for each product line required to be maintained by Dallas ISD. Oh my goodness. Now we got to add some more stuff to our checklist. So we know that we have to be certified by these particular companies. Now we have to have a letter from each of them too. So we need to make sure we add that to our checklist. So we need a letter from who? We need a letter from Cisco, HPE, Fortinet, Aruba. Got it, everybody? Are we all on the same page? Am I missing anything? And this is why it's important to have somebody either helping you, especially when they're long, helping you and making sure that you have everything that you're going to need. Because the sad part about these things, you could have all these things, but if you're missing one of these components, that's it. So they've already asked us here. They talked about the letter that we're going to need from each of the companies. Now, they're doing it again. They're asking you, yes, I have attached to our proposal a manufacturer letter or written certification for each product line required. you have to circle this or this, okay? Each respondent must provide a list of staff members who are sufficiently qualified. So they're already telling you, you got to provide a list of the staff members. We're going to add that to our checklist. So the next one is circle one from the response below values. Yes, I have attached to our proposal a list of staff members. No, I did not. You have to circle it. You actually have to circle, because if, say for instance, you provide this and then you don't circle something. Because remember, these are people looking at this. So if I'm looking at this and you don't circle, which one should I think is right? Should I think the yes one is right or the no one is right? Or do I have the time to dig through the whole thing to look for it? So you have to remember, these are people looking at it. So from that perspective, we want to make sure we circle yes, so they know to look for it. So here, this is talking about, you have to explain how your company will extend previously agreed upon discounted pricing. Here we go with the pricing again. And you guys have already identified that pricing is worth up to 40 points. So they're wanting you to explain that. So we want to add that to our checklist. Okay, so 7, because remember I told you this particular one had 12 questions. So number 7 is the district's review process for the master maintenance and support list will begin in January of each year. Explain how your company will assist Dallas ISD in this review process of equipment, software, and coverage. Remember the problem solution. Problem solution. Each RFP, that's what it is, a problem, and you're providing the solution. So number 8 is talking about the discounted pricing. So we're not going to go into that because it's very specific, and explain how your company will extend previously agreed upon discounted price. Number 9, the selected vendor will meet with Dallas ISD staff at least twice a year for a report card to go over status. Now, if you're completing this RFP and the district is telling you you're going to have to meet twice a year, they're telling you. Now, if I'm looking at this and I'm going to respond to this and I have not, and I've missed my window of opportunity for question and answer, or say, for instance, if we're doing really good, I did not miss my opportunity for question and answer, and I'm going to ask the question, can this be a virtual meeting or is it an in-person meeting? This is just to give you an example of the type of question that you can ask if you're unsure about something. Now, from a business standpoint, someone had asked earlier about pricing and quotes and different things like this. This is something to consider when you're thinking about your pricing, because you have to pay for attending that meeting. You may have to pay travel expenses or whatever. So these are things that you need to consider as a business owner when you're looking at these RFPs. Now, number 10 is saying the first point of contact for technical issues will be directly with the manufacturer support group, for instance, Dallas ISD. So I'm going to go to the question at the end. Explain how your company will address this Dallas ISD requirement. Again, Q&A, right? That's all these RFPs are for. And then you see responding to your answer below. Explain your company's invoicing system. Another part of our checklist. We've got to explain our invoicing system. Now they're saying provide detailed examples of your company's previous experience in providing maintenance and support to customers with networks of similar size to Dallas ISD. Be specific regarding network size when describing your company's previous experience. So this is kind of a two-part one, right? Because you have to provide the experience, but you also have to describe the size of the network. So this is just general information, the name of your firm. Okay, so before we get into this other part, I want to talk briefly about references. Okay, so Dallas ISD has a couple different references that we ask for. MWBE asks for references, as well as procurement services asks for references. References can make or break your proposal, because there's points attached to that. So you want to make sure, first of all, that you let your references know that they will be contacted, because we do contact references. You want to make sure their contact information is correct and legible. And you want to make sure you're in good working relationship with them. Okay. So if you submit a reference that's you don't have a good working relationship with, or there's been issues with, and you also want to note that the references for the MWBE portion is specific to MWBE. So if you're trying to use the same references for both and it doesn't qualify under MWBE, you could miss out on some points. So I just want to make sure that I noted that before we move forward, okay?